shout, can't you see me? Maybe you can, and that's a problem.
Disability Diaries.
Hi, I'm not like most of you. You see, I was in and out of hospitals for the entirety of my childhood. When I was 6 months old, I needed surgery to fix a relatively rare birth defect involving my heart. The prognosis was good, and the operation was expected to be completed without a hitch. That didn't happen, though. A mistake was made, and then another mistake was made after the first one. By the time the surgery was over, I wasn't the same boy I had been the day before. I had lost a lot of blood, I was unable to move my legs, and doctors weren't even sure if I'd live to see the next day. This song isn't about that hospital stay because I don't remember it at all. I was too young, of course. This song is about a different time in the hospital. It's about the first time that I was aware of what being in the hospital meant. The first time that I was really aware. I'm a little scared now for the first time, he said as he walked through the doors of his tiny hospital room. We won't leave, his mom and dad said softly. His sister came and brought a bunch of cards from the kids at school. Why does he have to go through all this? Is there a reason for this fight? How can this be a part of your plan? It's almost a shame he put up a fight. Everyone would come to see the portrait. They didn't know what it was like to lie in bed all alone. G.I. Joes and Lego sets were given for him to play with an accident. Oh no, a broken bone. I can't believe you ignored all my prayers. I guess there's nothing else to say now. But if it were me, I'd done everything I could to help him, to help him. Why does he have to go through all this? Is there a reason for this flight? How can this be a part of your plan? It's almost a shame he put up a fight. Why does he have to go through all this? Is there a reason for this flight? How can this be a part of your plan? It's almost a shame he put up a fight.
Can you imagine me without my wheelchair?
Can you imagine me without my wheelchair?
Can you imagine me without these scars?
Can you imagine me not using sign language?
Or me without my leg braces?
You might not be able to imagine us without those things, but I'll tell you who can. Our parents. Many of our parents can imagine us without those things because Many of us were not born disabled. I mean, some of us were, of course, But there were a great many of us who were disabled at some point after birth. The fact is, I wasn't born with my wheelchair. When I first arrived on this planet, my parents had no idea that I would end up using one of these things for nearly every day of my life. When a woman finds out that she's pregnant, she never thinks to herself, my child is going to have a disability. It must be quite jarring for parents when it is known that their child is going to have to deal with some type of handicap during their life.
Anyway, we started out by discussing what it's like going into the hospital for the first time. If you've never been to a hospital for anything more than an outpatient procedure, you wouldn't know, but the first thing that you think of after you've been in for more than a day or so is, when am I getting out of here?
When am I getting out of here? So there's so much I can do. When am I getting out of here? I've seen the smash of the sun 10 times. How often can I play this same that you're playing? How often can I look out the window and count the drops of rain? Or twiddle my thumbs once more? I listen again to my roommate start to snore. Time just drags on by, and I begin to cry. When am I getting out of here? So there's so much I can do. When am I getting out of here? I've seen this Cheers episode 10 times. Hey there, Freddie Rocker, I really love your show. But you know it'd be fucking great if there was somewhere else I could go. Somewhere outside instead. Somewhere out of this hospital bed. It's a goddamn bore. They wake me every morning at 4. The clock ticks so slowly. Life keeps passing me by. Friends are in school and I'm lonely. The world awaits outside. When am I getting out of here? There's only so much I can do. When am I getting out of here? I've seen his friends episode 10 times. When am I getting out of here? There's only so much I can do. When am I getting out of here? I've seen this smash episode 10 times. I've seen it 10 times. I just want to make a quick note. The next part is supposed to be done with sign language also. I am unable to do that, so you'll just have to imagine. I cannot heal myself of my disability in my dreams because I instinctively know that I will wake up the same. Deafness is my norm since birth. There are some hints on how I get by on a daily basis. I rely a lot on facial expressions and surroundings. In the next song, the phrases, eyes they signal me and hands they vibrate me, are meant to convey those ideas. Additionally, the expression mute button stuck is meant to express that hearing people may feel it is a great disaster when they can't hear a TV show or movie with the sound off. This is a standard feeling for me as a deaf person, and I'm used to watching things without knowing what's going on many times. Subtitles and closed captioning are huge deals to me, and they open up the world for me. Having them available is akin to a person who can hear simply putting the sound on. Too softly, I cannot hear. Lips, they seem to move, nothing comes out. Eyes, they signal me all that it took. It's just me, although this is a dream. It's just me. Eerily quiet, can you hear me? Ears, they don't work, hollowly in and out. Hands, they vibrate me, absorbing everything. It's just me, although this is a dream. It's just me. Without sound, dreaming it away, above the ground, away from reality. You got stuck, you're a great disaster. You got stuck, oh, that's how it is. Too softly, I cannot hear. I live and move, nothing comes out. Eyes, they signal me all that it took. It's just me, although this is a dream. It's just me. Yeah, quite definitely. Do you hear that? Yeah, quite definitely. Did you hear that? Yeah, quite definitely. Did you hear that? Yeah, quite definitely. Did you hear that? Without sound, dreaming it away, above the ground, away from reality. You've gotten stuck, you're a great disaster. You've gotten stuck, oh, that's how it is.
This next piece was written from the perspective of a devotee. For those of you who are unaware, a devotee is someone who is attracted to disabilities. Most often the attraction is sexual, but sometimes it can be emotional or both sexual and emotional. Sometimes it's another type of attraction that I honestly can't explain, and quite frankly, neither can they. Anyway, some devotees are nice, some of them aren't. This song is about the ones that aren't. The music is intentionally dissonant at points, and the lyrics include mostly things that many of us have been told by devotees. Hey, you're cute.
me. Dead legs, dead legs, dead legs, you're just a piece of me. Polio leg boy, I love you because you're a freak.
I've been told that my dead legs are hot and sexy. I've been called polio leg boy. I've been called a freak. I've frequently received requests to do things that the requester knows I can't do. For example, to walk with crutches but without braces, which would cause me to fall instantly. The reason for this is that many devs, as they are called for short, get off on the struggle. They want to see disabled people try and fail to do things that able-bodied people are capable of. I often get requests for pictures and or videos of my feet and legs, and on one occasion when I refused, the person told me that he was going to sue me. I've had a girlfriend's life threatened because the devotee felt that said girlfriend presented an obstacle in the way of being with me.
Essentially to them, we are just pieces of meat that exist solely for their pleasure and entertainment.
I should note that there are many kinds of devotees. There are wheelchair devotees, braces and crutches devotees, who often also have a slight bondage fetish, prosthesis devs and amputee devs, which are the most common. As a matter of fact, there are even some that find the idea of amputation so desirable that they have healthy limbs removed if they can find a doctor that is willing to do that for them. Some who are unable to find such a doctor take matters into their own hands and amputate their own legs, arms, fingers, or toes. These people are typically called wannabes. They are different from, but ultimately similar to devotees.
You may or may not be surprised to hear that there is another group of people who often associated with devotees and wannabes. These people pretend to have a specific disability and they are fittingly called pretenders. Wheelchair pretenders, for example, will go out and buy a wheelchair to use for their daily life, even though they have no medical reason for needing one. Braces pretenders will buy or make their own braces to wear, again, despite not actually needing them.
Next is a song about a strange phenomenon called inspiration porn. There is no one definitive definition of inspiration porn, but generally it is thought of as a portrayal of people with disabilities as inspirational simply because of their disability. For example, one time I was out eating lunch at a restaurant and someone came up to me and said, "Oh wow, this is amazing! You out there on your own at a restaurant, God bless you!" Then the person shed some tears, apparently from being so moved by me out at a restaurant. Well, what would they fucking do? Eating something that everyone needs to do in order to survive. It certainly isn't amazing, wonderful, stupendous, or anything like that at all. It's just something I do. I make my bed in the morning. I go grocery shopping. I do laundry. Those are things that everyone else does, but because I have a disability, I've been praised for doing each of them and other mundane things as well.
For today. hit them with my shoe.
All they see is my disability. Something for them to look at and feel good about. When I think about it, I just want to shout. Inspiration home, inspiration home. That's all I owe to you. Inspiration home, inspiration home. Please get a fucking clue. Inspiration home, inspiration home. That's all I owe to you. Inspiration home, inspiration home. Please get a fucking clue.
Yeah.
I didn't touch on this before, but being considered inspirational for doing simple, everyday tasks isn't the only problem with how many people view us.
That's right. Part of the issue is that we are often expected to be sources of constant inspiration. We have this pressure placed on us by society to always persevere no matter what the circumstances. Well, I've got some news for you. We aren't always happy, we don't always feel great, and we aren't always strong. Some days we feel frustrated, humiliated, or simply sick and tired. On days like that, we don't want to give you a pep talk or show you how great life is. Some days we want to cry or to be as weak as our bodies and collapse into a funk that no one would misinterpret as inspiration. We should be able to do so without worrying that someone will see the truth and be somehow less inspired.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick 5, and we'll be right back. Inspiration book. You know you're going to be singing that on the way home. And the stars every time. Inspiration one. It has like a serious message, but it's so catchy, man. It's so catchy.
I can't help it. I really like catchy songs. Like, they stick in your head. That's the kind of song I want.
No, you do well with that. You do well with that.
Sorry, late.
You're good? You're good?
That was hard.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, are we back? We back? We're good? All right, thank you. We are reconvening.
I'm going to talk a bit about a group of people that are, in a way, the opposite of those that get off on inspiration porn. These are the ones that park in handicapped spots for access aisles. These are the ones that use the handicap stall in a restroom when there are other normal stalls not being used. These are the ones that, at best, have no regard for those with disabilities and, at worst, have contempt for them.
Well, if any of you are here tonight, I have got more news for you fuckers. It isn't okay to use a handicap stall because you feel uncomfortable about using a urinal to take a piss. And it isn't okay to use a handicap stall to change clothes.
It isn't okay to use a handicap stall to smoke a cigarette, play a game on your phone, or just because it is so much roomier than the regular stalls.
It isn't okay to park in a handicapped space or access aisle even for 1 second, so get out of my parking space, bitch. Hey there, watch out, and see me if you can, and that's a problem. Please don't park there, and hours might be a bit confusing for all of you out there, but the fact is, when able-bodied people go out and do errands in the winter, their extremities warm up fairly soon after they get inside a warm building. That is not the case for manual wheelchair users.
The hand grips on our wheels are most often made up of some type of metal. When metal gets cold, they tend to stay cold for a very, very long time. Because of that, the onset of winter can mean having cold hands all day for several months at a time. Prolonged frosty hands can even happen in warmer weather thanks to the miracle of air conditioning. Granted, having the AC on when it's sweltering hot out is nice, but it can make our wheels cold and therefore give us cold hands. Another situation where it can happen, regardless of the time of the year it is, it's at the grocery store, in the frozen food section. Even being in one of those aisles for just 15 to 20 seconds can cause cold fingers. It is a situation that is very often unavoidable.
Alright. So, you are wondering, why isn't it okay to do the things that we just talked and said about?
Handicap spots are there for a reason. The reason is not so that able-bodied people can park up front if they're in a hurry. Most handicap parking spots are wider than standard spots, not because we like wide spots or because we are bad at parking, but because we need the space to get our wheelchairs in and out of the vehicles. We don't want to bump or scratch the car next to us, but we will if you're parked too close to us and we have no other way to get out or to get into or out of our car. Sorry, not sorry. Loading bags in the car from a seated position can also require extra room for wheelchair users.
Another thing to remember is that many people with handicap plates or placards can still walk, but only for short distances. Try not to judge anyone who has a permit. The reasons they have it might not be visible. For example, I can walk most of the time, but there are days when my body makes that too difficult. On those days, I use a wheelchair as a mobility aid.
As for restrooms, ever wonder why the handicap stall is so big? It's because wheelchair users need to be able to get in and still be able to shut and lock the stall door. Most of us have suffered the frustration of accessible stalls, which aren't actually big enough for us to shut the door behind the chair. Privacy is a privilege we often don't get enough of, so when you take the only stall we can actually fit in, it's annoying, to say the least. I understand that you might not like the cramped quarters of a regular stall, especially if you're taking a shit, but we literally can only fit in the big one, so no matter what we are in there for.
Some of us have catheters, disposable underwear, or other medical necessities that make the additional room vital. Additionally, we actually need the grab bars, raised toilet seats, and other accommodations a handicap stall provides, so the next time you are tempted, please sacrifice your personal comfort for the possibility of someone else's necessity and use a different stall.
P.S. If we aren't able to close the stall door, we might still use the toilet. Just remember, an open stall door doesn't give you the right to stare at us while we do our business. Some people will do just that, and if they do, I like to stare right back at them and see how uncomfortable I can make them feel. You gotta have a little fun, right?
Another thing, have you ever noticed that baby changing stations are nearly always in the wheelchair accessible stalls and restrooms? First of all, it's ableist to have restrooms designed that way. There should be a separate place for the baby changing table. Second, have you ever seen a baby changing station that actually worked? I haven't. Every time I've seen a person go into a restroom with their baby, they come out again with the same baby. No change whatsoever. I'm not sure if the parents are supposed to come out with a different kid, or if the babies are supposed to change into puppies, or dragons, or unicorns, or electric guitars, but just from the name alone, I always assume that baby changing stations are supposed to do the same thing as the transmogrifier from those old Calvin and Hobbes comic strips. I digress, though. Let me move on to something else. Dating is tough for everyone, but it can be excruciatingly difficult for those with disabilities. First, you have to deal with the assumptions and stigmas that prospective partners have. I've been asked, can you have sex? The answer to that is yes, but I rarely have orgasms. I'm told that is quite unusual for a man, but I wouldn't really know for sure since I had no pre-injury experience in that area. Regardless, one time when I explained that to someone who was interested in me, The person asked, "What's the point of sex if you don't have an orgasm?" That made me feel fucking fantastic, as I'm sure you can imagine.
That's a great point. There are also the preconceptions that family members tend to have. Not our family members, mind you, but the siblings, parents, and grandparents of potential partners. I've been asked, how will you make a living and provide for my sister? You're deaf.
I feel you there. I was in a relationship with this girl, and her grandmother told me that she thought that her granddaughter's life would be easier without me in it. It is as if some people think that we are all just shut-ins who would only be burdens on significant others, or that we are incapable of holding jobs or having careers.
Right? I'm a teacher. I love my job and my students. I like to think that I'm really good at what I do. My employer and plenty of parents seem to agree with that sentiment.
I'm also a teacher, and ditto, ditto, ditto.
I'm an IT professional, and the company I work for loves me. They're honestly scared to lose me as an employee, and that's a great feeling. I mean, being wanted instead of being shunned. And I also develop smartphone apps. Shh, don't tell the company I work for.
I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm mainly a musician and actor, but I also make motivational and educational YouTube videos that have helped tens of thousands of people in countries around the world. Additionally, I buy and sell sports cards, invest in stocks and cryptocurrencies, and I'm a published author.
Some of us may not have jobs, but don't assume that because we don't have jobs, that's because we don't want to work. Many of us want to work, but can't get hired because of discrimination against those with disabilities. Thankfully, the internet has provided numerous ways for us to have careers without worrying about needing to be hired because we can be our own bosses.
The assumption that we can't possibly provide a good life for a potential significant other is not the only problem when it comes to dating and relationships, though. There is the fact that very often when out on a date, people assume that my date is my sister, my cousin, or some other family relation rather than a romantic partner. Talk about awkward.
Tell me about it. People just do not see those with disabilities as desiring love, or even being capable of it.
Superficial dreaming, you're not awake. You can't understand, can't know my fate. Disability's not my only trait. I'll show you the real while you fake. Pressured like a diamond, too much to take. Please keep in mind, it's all love before you decide. Love is love, let me remind. It's all love, nowhere to hide. Love is love is love. Love is love is love. Somebody's mama got mad. Family drama ain't so right. I've been bad and I've been bad. You might think it's shitty luck. I don't want no pity fuck. It's kinda fun, it doesn't suck. No shitty luck, no pity fuck. Just keep in mind, it's all love before you decide. Love is love, let me remind. It's all love, nowhere to hide. Love is love is love. Love is love is love. I got the switch from this damn bitch, raging without a switch. I am a wild bitch. I got the itch, say I'm rich. She said I won't get far. I'll show her that I am a star. To her look bizarre. Ableism is about par for the horse.
finally do find someone that wants a relationship with you, and everything's great, for a while anyway, she starts to pick on things about your disability. She says things like,
Ugh, you can't even carry my luggage for me.
Or,
I don't think you really have a kidney infection. I think you just don't want to come see me.
even though you just got out of the hospital a couple of days earlier and can barely eat or even get out of bed. It is impossible for an able-bodied person to understand what life is like for someone with a disability. I don't care if you are the doctor, best friend, sibling, parent, child, or lover of a person with a disability, you just can't fathom what we go through. It isn't your fault, though. You can't be expected to comprehend something that you haven't experienced. The fact is that because of this gap in understanding, things fall apart. Relationships fall apart. Don't stop now, it hurts so bad. There was a time when you were in love with me. Now that's gone and all that's left is misery. What happened to us, my darling? What happened to us, my darling? Things were great in the beginning. You didn't know who I was. You loved the person that you wanted me to be. Now it seems like we were just some cool parody of a sort of romance. Now there's really no chance for love in my life. My friend's all I can ever be. I'm sorry you thought you loved me. I was just an illusion. We both denied our true selves. Face it, honey, none of it matters anymore. With you, I'd never be standing at the stage door. To the beat of my joy, I won't be a whipping boy anymore. For anyone. I'm sorry you thought you loved me. Don't stop now, it hurts so bad. There was a time when you were in love with me. Now that's gone and all that's left is misery. What happened to us, my darling? What happened to us, my darling? Friends all I can ever be. I'm sorry you thought you loved me.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Things do fall apart sometimes. Sometimes they fall apart slowly. Other times they just blindside you. Days after the accident that caused my spinal cord injury, my wife was with me at the hospital. And she just looked down at me and said, "I didn't sign up for this." And then she left. I got the divorce papers shortly after that. So much for in sickness and in health, huh?
Depression is something that nearly everyone goes through at some point in their lives. Some people go through it more often than others, and some never really overcome it. People with disabilities tend to go through bouts of depression more than those without disabilities.
Most of the time, I'm in good spirits. I joke around a lot, I laugh a lot, I smile a lot. Because I'm usually in a good mood, people often assume that I'm always happy. That isn't the case, though. I've had periods of depression in the past, and I'm fairly sure that I will have more in the future. Thankfully, though, I usually bounce back quickly and Whatever has me down rarely keeps me down for too long. This song, however, was inspired by a specific time when I didn't bounce back as quickly as I typically do. I wallowed for a long, long time. The prolonged funk wasn't specifically because of my disability, but more because of things that happened as a side effect of my injury. I was talking with a friend of mine, and at the end of the conversation he said, "I'll talk to you soon. Don't do something stupid." Those words stuck with me, and I decided to write a song about the experience and my feelings regarding it. No one else is around. I remember you. Shadows are all that fill my mind. Am I the victim of something meant to be? Or was I the cause of everything? Don't do something stupid. The words are in my mind. I don't remember the rest that was said. Just don't do something stupid. Happens time and time again. It won't hurt you. It helps you more than you could know. Everyone passes, everything stays the same. At least I won't have to feel it then. Don't do something stupid. The words and words I hear, I don't remember the rest that was said. Just don't do something stupid. Don't do something stupid.
We're not going to talk about those people, though.
Not that there's anything wrong with them.
No, of course not. What consenting adults do with the privacy of their own bedroom is their own business. That said, many able-bodied people have lots of different misconceptions about disabilities and sex. Many think that disabled people can't have sex. Others think that disabled people don't want to have sex. Some even think that disabled people wouldn't enjoy sex or that they aren't worthy of having sex. It is unfortunate, but disabled people like us fight an uphill battle in terms of almost everything in life. I can't speak for everyone, but I know just based on personal experience that what I've read and seen online that sex is absolutely possible for a lot of us. It may be different than what most people think sex is supposed to be like, but it is still enjoyable. There is still intimacy. There's still heat. There's still passion. Another thing that able-bodied people often do not realize about having a disability is the added cost of living. We visit doctors more often and have more medical tests done than the average person. We take more medication than most people. Many of us require a lot of specialized equipment too. That seat cushion for my wheelchair costs $400, and it only lasts about a year or so before they need to be replaced.
Wheelchair vans often cost more than twice as much as regular vans, and because there are extra parts, there are more repair costs associated with them than with normal vehicles.
We're already talking about tens of thousands of dollars in extra bills to pay, and that's just scratching the surface. A hand bike for exercising will set you back $2,000 at the very least. That's just for the bare bones, no frills model. Custom manual wheelchairs go for at least $5,000. The average power chair is going to run around $12,000 for the higher end, and for the higher end models, you're looking at $20,000.
Medications, surgeries, medical tests, and various other expenses, they add up quickly. They make our lives much more expensive than the average person. But on a positive note, we have loyalty punch cards, and after 9 surgeries, we get the 10th one for free.
There's so much more that we'd like to tell you. There's so much more that we'd like you to understand about our lives, about disabilities in general. Yet we don't want to bore you, so we'll try to be as quick about it as we can. We'll just hit the most glaring issues.
You know how a lot of people say, oh, that's so lame, to mean that something is bad or boring? That's ableist language and is insulting to people with disabilities. The actual meaning of lame is unable to walk because of an injury to the leg or foot. By saying that something is bad is lame, you are saying that disabled people are bad. I wouldn't think that most people want to be saying that.
Additionally, we are not strapped, glued, or chained to our wheelchairs. So saying that we are in a wheelchair is inaccurate. We are not in a wheelchair. We are not wheelchair bound. We are wheelchair users. We transfer in and out of them when we need be. We transfer to toilets, beds, couches, vehicles, and various other places and things. More importantly than that, don't think that our wheelchairs limit us. They don't. They give us freedom. They enhance our lives. They allow us to experience a world that we would not be able to if they did not exist.
Have you ever been in a restroom that has a freestanding toilet paper holder? By that I mean a dispenser that is not attached to the wall. I'm sure you're thinking, how could that possibly pose a problem for anyone? Maybe you weren't thinking that, but I'll tell you anyway. The force needed to break off pieces of toilet paper from the freestanding holder is so great that often one or two things happen. Either the entire toilet paper roll comes off of the dispenser, or the dispenser itself falls. Sometimes it falls and the roll comes off. The simple solution is that you have one hand to steady the holder and use the other hand to rip off the toilet paper. Unfortunately, many wheelchair users cannot do that. We need to support ourselves with one hand and grab the toilet paper with one hand. That leaves us short one hand for steadying the dispenser.
Bath mats and rugs in general can be quite problematic for us as well. Smaller rugs and bath mats have a tendency to get caught in our wheels, and larger, thick rugs or carpeting can slow us down considerably.
You ever notice how the windows for bank tellers are extremely high? What's up with that? It's almost as if banks don't want our business. Thank God for Bitcoin.
Another thing you should know is that we're often funny. We like to joke around and laugh a lot, and why shouldn't we? As the old saying goes, laughter is the best medicine.
Hey, so how much do you think I need to laugh before I begin using my legs? That's a joke, by the way. Our jokes often have to do with our disabilities, and it's okay to laugh at them.
That's so true. We're funny, creative, intelligent, passionate, and interesting people if you take the time to get to know us. One thing is for sure, we are not our disability. Using a wheelchair can make us feel both invisible and infamous. Sometimes it seems that people do not see us at all. They just see the disability and ignore or...
Confused. Poor guy.
You know what confuses them even more than that? You should see the looks on their faces like, oh my God, how can this person travel alone? They are in a wheelchair, for Pete's sake.
So that's everything. Or is it? We've covered a lot of information, but there's so much more that we haven't discussed. Before we say anything else, we'd like to thank you for coming out today to see the show. By doing so, you've taken the first step to understanding a bit more about disabilities and those who have them.
Indeed, thank you so much for coming. Now, we have a request for you. If you see a wheelchair user or someone using sign language, or perhaps someone with a disability that we haven't talked about, don't be afraid to go talk with them. Don't be afraid to ask them about their day or tell them the funniest joke that you know.
Don't be afraid to ask us what time it is. If we saw the latest Deadpool movie. Or maybe even fall in love with us.
Don't be afraid to expand on what you've seen and heard here by doing a little research on your own. Remember that we've only touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of disabilities. There are so many others out there, and a little knowledge goes a long way to increased understanding and compassion.
Don't be afraid to make friends with me, even though sometimes we might have a little trouble communicating. By the way, texting doesn't require any hearing or speech, so there's always that.
And please, for those of us in manual wheelchairs, whatever you do, don't push us without asking first. We hate that. It can be dangerous for us and also for you.
Amen to that.
Once again, thank you for coming. Hopefully we've enlightened you, educated you, and maybe even entertained you along the way. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. We hope you realize you and I are so different. It really takes all of us to make